What's up, everyone? Welcome to The Spooky Brain, a mental health podcast by and for the absolute gremlin. My name's Kit Kerrigan, and I am not a therapist. What I am is a neurodivergent person with a complex psych history and a special interest in the brain. I have been in therapy for over 15 years. I survived over 20 years of chronic suicidal ideation. And if you found yourself thinking that therapy is hard, you're not crazy. Therapy isn't as simple as open bottle, take pill, move on. There's a lot of experimenting to see what approach your brain needs in order for the tools to actually work. I've also found talking to friends that this experimental side of therapy isn't clearly communicated to many of them, and that they drop therapy because all they're getting is more frustration. The purpose of these videos is to demonstrate what I need to do for my tools to actually work with my brain and make it easier for others to imagine what they might need to do to work with their brains. I went back and forth for a while about where to start with sharing my mental health tricks. But listening to the state of the world and how hopeless many of my friends are feeling, I'm just going to start where I always started for the 20 years that I was suicidal. The first step is to live. I'm not kidding. Every other trick in my mental health toolbox is meaningless unless I'm alive to use it. And for 20 years, allowing myself to remain alive was something I had to put effort into. There's a conversation I had probably 15 times in those years. You may have had it too. It's the intake conversation with a new therapist or psychiatrist. And sooner or later, we'd get to this question: do you have thoughts of suicide? And I would answer, yes, all the time, but I'm not going to do it. And this part was important to emphasize immediately because while I did benefit from my 2 stays in a psych hospital, the suicidal ideation never went away, and I was not willing to spend my entire life in hospitals waiting on a cure. Therefore, I walked a delicate line. I needed mental health professionals to know about my symptoms so that we could work on them, but I also needed them to believe that I was not in active danger so that they wouldn't call emergency services on me. Anyway, they all phrase it a little differently, but the next question boils down to why. Why are you not going to kill yourself? Why can I trust that if I let you walk out of this room, you're going to be alive the next time I see you? When a doctor asks you that, it feels like a weighty question, something that needs a clear and weighty answer. So I would usually give one because my family would miss me, because my cat would never understand why I was gone, because dead bodies are disgusting and I don't want to be directly responsible for someone having to clean up the mess of my remains. But now I'm going to tell you something that I didn't explain at those initial appointments. I could never make a single reason for living work long term. Have you ever said a word over and over, so many times that it starts to become meaningless? It's like your brain stops processing the word as a whole and it just becomes a series of sounds. That same thing happens for me with reasons to live. If I repeat one to myself all the time, it starts to become meaningless. My brain needs new, interesting thoughts in order for it to actually respond. And the problem with serious answers to existential questions is that they require significant time and energy to keep coming up with. It's not sustainable for me to find a new heavy-duty suicide deterrent every other week. So here we come to the thesis of this session. There is no such thing as a stupid reason to go on living. I had bad days. I had days where I truly did need to picture the mess my body would leave if I killed myself in various ways and the distressing experience some poor person would have on discovering my remains. I had days where I needed to remember that pets do grieve their lost owners, and some are absolutely heartbroken by it. And my cat is a stage 5 clinger who might never get over my death. I rarely used the idea of my family missing me because my brain is very good at rationalizing that other humans would be better off without me, but I know a lot of people who use this one as their failsafe. Hell, I even had a written contract with my parents at one point, promising them that I wouldn't kill myself. Because the belief that breaking promises is bad persisted far deeper into my bad days than the belief that my family loves me. But I didn't use my fail-safe arguments every day. Instead, I invented endless good enough reasons not to kill myself. Things that may not have won a philosophical debate, but they did provide an answer to that question in my mind, some motivation to live, and a laugh that helped boost me out of the pain. I've lived because if I die, I will never eat chocolate again. Or cheesecake. or donuts, or another hot fudge sundae. I've lived because I already had Comic-Con tickets or a Halloween costume, and it would be a shame to waste them. I've lived for my to-be-read pile and all the stories that I didn't know the end to. I've lived to finish art and writing projects. Although I did phase this one out in the end, I was so anxious about the possibility of losing a reason to live that I never actually worked on my projects, and I wasn't happy with that outcome. I've lived because a show I was enjoying might get another season. I've lived because the world is too goddamn weird to just nope out of. I have to see what happens next. I have lived so many times just to see what happens next. These lighter reasons to live are plentiful, they're easy to come up with, and they provide a surprising amount of motivation not to kill myself. I love them. They were a staple of my years surviving suicidal ideation. But there were also times when lighter reasons didn't resonate very well. Sometimes even the justifications that I called my fail-safes earlier didn't resonate either. This would especially happen when I was angry. Angry at myself, angry at the world, angry at the people around me. Anger really shifts that internal landscape of my mind, and I require a completely different set of reasons to live when I'm angry. Sometimes when I'm angry, I respond very well to a sort of grim hope. This is especially useful when I'm angry at the world's injustices and feel that there is no point in going on. I tell myself, there is no justice in the world except what we make, and I can't make any more if I'm dead. It's very hard for my brain to argue this one, especially when I am angry. Obviously, the only possible source of decency in this massive, uncaring universe has to be people deciding to care anyway. And equally obviously, I can't do shit if I'm dead. And having, in some way, accepted the bitter aspects of reality, my anger morphs into a sort of growling optimism, and it becomes easier for me to focus on what I can do rather than my desire for death. When this argument works, it works really well. Sometimes, however, this does not work. It especially does not work if I'm too exhausted to do things for other people, which is a common occurrence in my chronically ill life. It's also less effective if I'm currently angry at myself. There are many times in my life when the practical, logical thing to do is take care of myself, but I'm so angry that I'd actually rather die. Allow me to introduce, dear listener, the power of spite. You see, there are people in this world who would prefer that human society not include certain types of people. Disabled people, chronically ill people, people with extra support needs, queer people, kinky people, women who won't shut up and serve the men in our lives, people of various races, religions, and cultures that in some way differ from the 1950s Wonder Bread culture that those people perceive as normal. I happen to belong in many of the categories of humanity that some humans would prefer to do without or subjugate. That's right. Whole-ass adult people would prefer this world without me in it. And so, in the pits of my own fury and despair, I say with my whole chest, fuck those people. That's right. I lived despite the neo-Nazis. Kind of a lot. The fun thing about spite is that it is a gift that keeps on giving. I can keep piling it on as many times as I need to in order to take care of myself that day. You know how ableist people tend to have big feelings about those of us who need daily medication? Fuck those people. Look at me taking all of my meds. I'm going to have myself a little piece of chocolate at medication time too, because fuck them. Oh, people want queer folk to be excluded from society, unable to access survival resources as well as the things we enjoy? Well, fuck those people. I'm going to eat a nice, nutritious lunch. Delicious macromolecules being assimilated into my queer body, fueling me for another day of queer life. I'm going to exchange memes with friends because we're going to laugh when the neo-Nazis would prefer that we suffer. Oh, people think we don't deserve music and TV that represents us as we are? Fuck them. I have an internet connection and I will be going ham with it. I cannot tell you how many days I have both survived and truly lived out of spite. It's not the first tool I reach for because I prefer to stay in a lighter mood if I can, but when all other lights go out, my spite is there for the dark places. I feel like I should mention, at least in my case, that spite is a versatile thing. It's not entirely married to the present time and place. I do not require actual living neo-Nazis in order for spite to work. I could live despite hateful historical figures just fine in the absence of currently living people choosing to be hateful to each other. I'm flexible that way. Feel free to make the world a better place. I'll deal. Even my current response when people ask if it's worth continuing to live in the current world has an element of spite to it. I tell people and myself that until such time as something actually manages to kill me, I will go on as if I'm going to have a future. If the universe wants me dead, it will have to get off its ass and smite me. I'm not doing anyone's dirty work for them. And after 20 years, I exist as my own proof of concept here. I could never have seen all the new developments that I would have in life during any of the moments when I stood there with a knife at my throat. And while some have been more pleasant than others, most have at least been interesting, and my life is worth having lived to experience. Now, if you think that all these options I'm suggesting as reasons to live are just a bandage, I mean, you're right. There are big old bleeding wounds underneath the longing for death. It matters that we eventually find a way to heal those wounds. But it also matters that until then, we're able to keep the wound clean and keep ourselves from bleeding out. Humans invented bandages for a reason. And especially in a world where the news cycles are full of flying shrapnel, it's good to carry a stash of bandages. So I'll leave it there for today. As the saying goes, like and subscribe, drop me a comment. This series is less of a class and more of an unofficial 3 a.m. study session with your neurodivergent friend who has a special interest in this topic. So while I do have some planned topics to info dump about, I also want to know what areas of mental health give you trouble so we can dig into those. Till next time, stay weird out there.